So these are actual sizes. Fusion, or Eagle, I think it used to be called in this case, and TinkerCAD have worked together to create an actual size one-to-one PCB that will fit all the components in. Now obviously you might not want the LED there, you might want the LED to come up a bit, and that's fine, you can do that, but for this example we're just going to leave it exactly where it is. Now underneath, that's where all the pins would go, so the pins go through the top, through the hole, underneath, and then of course we solder the pin to the pad, and that connects to the track, and that's why I put the pads underneath. If the pads went on top, well, you would be something called a surface mounted solder, which is actually very, very difficult. We're going to make the enclosure, and we don't want the PCB or the circuit to rattle around in the box. So I'm actually going to put a few holes here, 1, 2, maybe one there, to allow it to fit. So if we go PCB hole, we're just going to select that face for it. That's 8mm. That's quite large. I think a 3mm would be better. And we're just going to move that over here. So we've got one there, and I'm going to do one more here. I'll be able to move it. And when I just look at this side of the track first and move it there. It's quite okay. All right, so that's done, and I'll save that. And when that's saved, I'm just going to close it. Okay, so now I've got this new untitled area, and for this we've got to save it first. So 5 LED, and call it enclosure. And now that's saved, I can click this, don't double click, but instead secondary click, insert into current design. Okay, and I'm just going to close this window to give me a bit more space. Now, I'm not going to do anything to that, I'm happy the way it is. It's got the holes exactly where I need them. So let's make the box. Now we can't just put this into a box because we've got the solder and the legs here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to construct a plane and offset it. So that was that button there, or you can go to that menu and do it. And I'm going to drop that down about 5mm. So just click 5 and enter that. And so you can see that's the plane from where I'm going to draw. So I could measure it, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to project these lines here and these holes straight onto this plane. So what we can do is, if I go to new sketch, select the plane that I've just done, we go to create, project, and we're going to project that line. You can see it's just moving whatever's there straight onto that plane. Okay, and I'm okay with that projection. Okay, so that's there. Now that would be the base, and that would fit exactly, but we all know that when we do things that fit exactly, they never really fit. So I'm going to offset that. And just make that a little bit wider so it fits. So 1mm should work. So I'll do 1 mil. A 1mm offset is okay there. And so now the wall coming up would start there. So the wall has a thickness, so I'll offset that. Now it used to be you couldn't offset an offset, and that's still the case, so we've got to go back into the original one. And so if the first one was 1 mil, and I want the wall to be 2 mil, then of course that is 3 mil. So now that's the wall that's going to come straight up. I want these to hold this up, and I could actually screw them in, but of course these are exactly the same size, so I need to really offset these as well. So I'm going to click that one and do 1 mil, and I'm going to do the same for that. And that just makes the cylinder slightly bigger. Okay, now I can finish that sketch. do extrude. So the first one would be the outside wall, the gap, the base, here, here. So we're actually making the solid baseline at the moment. Now I'm actually going to go -1, so it brings it up. Now, of course, whenever you do an extrusion, it always hides the initial sketch, so we're just going to bring that back. Now, the first thing, I guess, would be to extrude the inner circle so that it's flush with here. So I'm going to extrude that one and that one, and I'm just going to extrude it in line with that. So if I just select that, it will extrude it straight away, and I join that. Now it won't join it to the PCB because the PCB is here and it's a different component, but it will join it to the base, so we can just say OK to that. Alright, the next one, and then we'll start hiding the PCB, is we want these two to come up, but we don't want them to go all the way through the PCB. We want them to support the underneath. So I select that part, and again we're going to join. Now I'll hide the PCB so you can see what you've done. There's the PCB there. So we've got our little spacers or feet, and they are supporting the PCB. And so now what we're going to do is make the walls. So we go to extrude again, push underneath and select the outside this time. And we'll raise that up. And we'll say join. And so now you can 3D print that. Alright, so we've got a battery issue here. That is 6 volts. Now you can either put your battery connector straight into here, or you can always insert it. But if you do that, probably better to do that at the beginning so that the box can hold the batteries. And I have failed to do that. There's always a problem.